Hello and welcome to another episode of Sales and Pepper podcast. My name is Dominic and I'm your podcast host. Today I'm talking to George Bell. He is a LinkedIn top voice and very well known on LinkedIn because he's talking about well-being and mental health. A very important topic to many of you, and also the first guest in my podcast was talking about his burnout and his experience about mental health topics. So I'm very happy to have you today, George. You're the 25th guest in the podcast and also kicking off 2023. Welcome, and maybe you can just tell our audience today a little bit about yourself.
Hey Dominic, thanks so much for having me. It's good to be here today. As you sort of alluded to, I'm in the mental health space. So I work for a business called Sanctus. We are a workplace coaching provider. One of the areas we work on is mental health, but it's a little bit broader than that. I think we look at like personal development, professional development, growth, and part of that is mental health and mental ill health as well. But I mean, for me personally, I've been in the industry for I think it's about 7 years now. You sort of lose track of time, particularly during the pandemic. About 7 years, and that was really sort of born out of my own struggles with mental health. I went through my own journey with depression and anxiety and ultimately suicidal thoughts. And I think tied up within that, there was a bunch of stuff. Like, what does it mean to be a man, and what's my life's purpose, and all that kind of stuff. So that was all in there. And I went through a journey with that. It was a difficult journey. Like I won't kind of sugarcoat it. It was really, really difficult, and it was made more difficult by just my own lack of knowledge and awareness and understanding. I'd never been taught about any of this stuff at school. When I was struggling, I didn't even have the language to describe what I was going through. I didn't have the understanding of it. So my journey was made a lot worse by that lack of knowledge and understanding, and it required me to do a lot of my own research and trial and error and testing different treatments and therapies and all this kind of stuff. And it was just a bit of a shit show, to be honest. And it made me worse than I believe I needed to be. So I think, I focused on myself and I focused on getting better. And once I sort of came out of that with this like fire in my belly, this real fire in my belly of doing something in this industry. Just because I just didn't agree with the way a lot of it like had been presented to us from the education system right through to, I think, how mental health is often talked about. It has changed in recent years, but really mental health was synonymous with mental ill health, and it was that was all you kind of heard about. We weren't taught to experience or understand or enjoy the whole range of mental health, which part of that is struggle, but part of that is joy and growth and everything in between. So I just had a real sort of fire in my belly for the industry. So I think that's kind of one part, and the other part is I'm a marketer at heart as well. I've got a real passion for marketing and brand and storytelling, and I think just kind of evoking emotion in people, really. So I've sort of married those two things together, and I now market in the mental health and wellbeing space. So that's how I ended up at Sanctus. A very, very short version, but there you go.
But that's a nice combination, I think. Because that's what I'm also experiencing myself. I think a lot of people are actually struggling with formulating their feelings in that regard, and don't know much about mental health until they're really struggling in life at one point at a time. And I also saw that with friends or family, and I think everyone goes through tough times in their lives. So I think it's super important, and also good to see that people are actually talking about it on LinkedIn as well, and especially like in the working environment, because in my opinion, pre-pandemic, it was a lot of times that you always thought there's your private me and there's the working me, right? So it's kind of two separate personas, and I felt or at least I feel like that's changed a little bit during the pandemic, because a lot of people struggled during that time. Like, how do you see, like, how did things change during the pandemic for yourself, or also like what you have seen maybe in the market?
Yeah, yeah. I think. Well, I'll start with the market, and I can talk about myself. I think the pandemic has brought forward the conversation around mental health and well-being by years, decades, even. Like I think it has really sped up the rate, like the level of conversation we're having around this, that from where it was going, which I think can only be a good thing. Like suddenly, everyone across the world was presented with this, and obviously everyone had different experiences of it, and I think some people were very aware, like them being isolated at home and separated from friends and family, and the negativity on the news made people depressed, and they were very, very aware that that's how they were feeling, and they were able to talk about that. For other people, they knew they were feeling different, but maybe they didn't have the language and they didn't realize it was mental health. But everyone pretty much universally was presented with a completely crazy life event, that was affecting everyone in some way, whichever way it was. And I think we were all made to like confront our own sort of feelings and mental health and how we connect with others and what we think about the world and our purpose. And just practically the news and the conversation every day for months in and out was about this killer virus, quote unquote. So we were sort of presented with our own like mortality as well. And I think it was yeah, really, really like eye-opening for people. And it meant that people were having conversations about mental health more than perhaps any other point in history. Again, some people were having very direct conversations about mental health, and they were able to use the words like, I feel really anxious. For other people, they would have been having these conversations without realizing they were doing it. It might have been something like, I'm finding it hard not being able to see my mates down the pub on a Friday. That's still a conversation about mental health. So yeah, I think it just sped up the rate at which we were having these conversations, and it sort of sped up the rate at which businesses and companies realized they needed to do something about it and look after their people. Because as a business, as Sanctus, we saw a lot of interest, a lot more people getting in contact with us. And then in terms of the industry, we've seen a lot more mental health and wellbeing companies pop up and start over the last couple of years. So yeah, I think it's gone from being a nice to have conversation to one that's actually a mainstay now. Which is, I think, is one silver lining of the pandemic. Obviously, it's been a tough time for everyone, but if there was a silver lining to it, I do think that's one of them. And then yeah, I think for me personally, as with everyone or most people, our situations have changed. Like I've gone from commuting 4 or 5 days a week into the office. I live quite far out of London. I commuted into London, so my journey was 3 hours a day. So I was commuting for 3 hours a day to now working from
3 hours? Oh my God.
Yeah, it was. I look back now and I don't really know why I was doing it, to be honest. I had like back pain. I had back pain that I was going to the physiotherapist about, and then 2 weeks into the pandemic of lockdown, my back pain disappeared. I think it was just sat on the tubes
Wow.
and the trains all day.
But was it
So
like
I think
3 hours a day, or per one way?
No, full trip. So 1.5 hours, like
Wow.
per trip. Yeah, which is still long. Yeah, so everyone's had adjustments to their life. So that was a big adjustment to mine. I'd sort of gained like another 15 hours or so back in my week to do what I want to do with. But then also at the same time, I used to use that commute to do a lot of reading. So I've done less reading over the pandemic. But yeah, I think it's been a kind of situation that has changed people's lives in a lot of ways. Like I think I've enjoyed the freedom and flexibility that's come with it, but then I've also struggled with some of the loss of connection. Like I'm just I'm not seeing the team as much. I'm not really seeing my friends as much.
Yeah.
I think I have struggled with that. So I think I'm definitely still grappling with life after the pandemic. I think we've sort of moved on from it. It's not really spoken about anymore. We've gone straight into other big life events like
Yeah,
war
yeah,
and economic downturn, but we've sort of we've sort of just emerged from the pandemic, and it's not really spoken about. And I think I try and keep it present in conversations with people, because I think the reality is it is still having an impact on people. Like I am definitely
yeah,
still feeling
absolutely.
a level of tiredness and exhaustion and burnout from that period. So I think
Yeah,
it has practically changed my life and other people's lives, which maybe they're used to now. Maybe people, I'm used to the fact I'm not commuting as much now, but I think emotionally and mentally, it's still having an impact. And I remember reading a lot of studies from scientists and psychologists who said that the physical impact of COVID and the pandemic would end before the mental impact and the mental health impact, and actually we would see a long tail of mental health struggles and issues continue well after the pandemic. And I think that's where we are now. Particularly, as I said, we've gone into more uncertainty. We're going into a war and economic downturn, all the rest of it. So yeah, it's definitely been a challenging period for myself. I've seen it in others, and at the same time, like I said, it has meant we are having more conversations than ever about mental health, which I do think is a good thing.
yeah, I definitely agree, and I can totally relate because I think we're quite the same. Then I also struggled a lot during the pandemic when because I'm a very social guy, going to events and working in sales. Of course, you talk a lot about it with people, and I always felt like that I gain energy with having people around me, and this was gone for at least like 1 or 2 years. And I think on the other hand, and that was also super interesting for me, we had after the pandemic, I started working for Pleo, and they are very open around this topic, and also hired a trainer, David Beanie. I don't know if you heard about him, and
Yeah,
he did
yeah,
trainings at Pleo for every employee, and talked about this topic and shared his story also around his mental health problems back then. And I think that was a little bit enlightening for me because we sat in small groups and we shared, like everyone at Pleo shared their stories during the pandemic, how they felt. And it was the first time for me where I thought, hey, I was not alone with these feelings. Everyone, like there was other people feeling the same, but on the other side, there were also people who said it was actually the best time of my life because I didn't need to talk to anybody. I was
yeah,
alone
yeah,
at home, and that was like so interesting to see that how different people actually reacted to the same situation. And there's one saying that still sticks with me, which he related to. It was, we're all sitting in the same storm but in different boats. And it was such a nice picture because I think, and that's also coming back to what you said, of course now the pandemic is slightly over, I would say, but now we are in the middle of the next crisis again. And the feeling that, yeah, actually that there's always something going on, and you're just jumping from crisis to crisis. A lot of people are really struggling with that kind of feelings and situations. Um, what is your experience? Because as far as I understand, at Sanctus, you're talking a lot to companies and managers. Is this something popping up at the moment that people are like, do you feel a change at this time? Also looking to the economic downturns and maybe mass layoffs. So is this something that also pops off for your
yeah,
clients?
yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I think what you said before as well about the different boats, same storm, because I think it is easy to, like, obviously, if you read the news and keep up with the media and general conversation at the moment, it is about cost of living crisis, it's about economic downturn, it's about war. So I think it is easy to assume that everyone is feeling the impact of that and everyone is struggling with that. Whereas actually, as you say, there are different experiences. People do have different experiences. Some people enjoyed the pandemic, not the pandemic itself, but the lockdown that came with it and that freedom. Um, I think we're seeing that difference in our coaching sessions. So yeah, we're a coaching provider. We provide workplaces with coaches to give their employees a one-to-one space to basically talk about whatever's on their mind. So, all the sessions are anonymous, so we don't know who says what, but we do get, it does mean we kind of get a good feeling and a good, kind of view on what is on people's minds right now. And obviously, cost of living and finances and the economy is a big one. And for other people, it's not a big issue for them, or it's not something they're personally feeling. And we see people bring everything. People are bringing the fact they want to go for a promotion, or the fact they're thinking of proposing to their partner and they're nervous about it, to moving into a new house, to wanting to become a manager. We kind of see everything. But I think one of the overwhelming kind of themes we're seeing at the moment has really come from the last couple of years, and we're still seeing now, is this feeling of anxiety and burnout and a bit of lack of confidence. So while the topics might be different, that the specific topics that people bring, like maybe people are bringing their issues of being a manager or issues with their relationship, there is a lot of underlying themes which have been borne out from the pandemic, which like I said, the big one is uncertainty. We've gone from a period of uncertainty with the pandemic into another period of uncertainty for a lot of people. We've gone from a period of burnout for a lot of people into continued burnout, stress, anxiety. So we are seeing a lot of that around at the moment, and we're seeing a lot of questions around purpose or lack of purpose, and motivation and lack of motivation, which again I think is tied up in this uncertainty and this burnout. I think when in times of uncertainty, it's easy to look at your purpose or question your purpose. So we're definitely seeing, coming back to that long tail of mental health, we're definitely seeing the pandemic still having an impact. And then as we've moved into more uncertainty, we're still seeing that play on people's minds, which shows up in different ways, but it's definitely there for people.
I think what's also super interesting is the hierarchy of needs from Maslow. I don't know if you probably know, right?
Yep.
Like this pyramid. Yeah. So that's something
Yeah.
we also introduced at Pleo to people, to understand that actually your mental health and your true self at work is not a disconnected thing, right? It's still like if you're not feeling well personally and mentally, this will affect everything else above, and that's also your job, right? So I think that's why it's so super important that companies also talk about this topic, and being aware that this is not something we are spending money on and it's just for having fun for people, but it is really important. And I think a lot of, like, for me personally, it was hard to define, um, is this actually a burnout or not, right? Is this because I struggled also in the past with my feelings at a certain point of time in my life, and I was unsure about, first of all, what you said, who can I talk to about these topics? Do I need help, and ask for help? And just like being overwhelmed by your own emotions. I think that's something a lot of people are actually going through right now. But to really understand what's going on, that's I think one of the biggest problem I see, that a lot of people having these issues, but they're not able to communicate it in the right way, or they don't know how to express their feelings. What's your opinion about this, or what's your own maybe your own experience with this topic?
Yeah, no, great question. I think kind of 2 points there. Like your first point around the hierarchy of needs, I think is spot on. Like for a long time, it was work and life, which I think you alluded to earlier in the podcast. It was very much, you had your work mask and your life mask, and when you got to the door of the office, you leave your problems outside, you get in, you get on with your job, you come out and you get home and you pick up your whatever's going on in life. And then that sort of started to change a bit more in recent years. People start to say, work-life balance, and they look at things like that. But again, I think that separates it out. It suggests that you have to balance work against life, or vice versa, and that they're two separate things. So I think we started to say a bit more like work-life flow or work-life blend. And then actually, I think you just get to the point where you just say life. Obviously, there are, bits that need to be separate and need to remain separate. But really, and this sounds really obvious to say, but whatever is going on in someone's life, as you said, it is going to impact their work. They can't physically leave that at the door. If they're having troubles with their relationship, or they're having to care for a parent, or they've got money worries, or they've got worries about their physical health, or maybe there's something they're really, really happy with. Maybe they're ecstatic about their wedding or something like that. That is going to come into the office, that is going to impact their work performance. So the more that we talk about those things as a blend, and the more that we accept that and help employees with that, or just people, the better we will get out of people. So I think you're absolutely right that you can't separate those two things out. But then, yeah, to your second point, the challenge is that there's a lot of overwhelming emotions in people's lives, and people don't know. Well, they often don't know what the emotion is, which is the first problem. They can't name the emotion, and they don't know what it means or what to do about it. And I think that was kind of the bedrock of my journey with mental health issues. To be honest, like I had all these things going on in my body, which now I know I look back was anxiety, and it was depression, and there was some burnout in there, but I didn't have those words. I didn't have that language. I think for about a year, the way I described myself and what I was going through is, I feel a bit weird, or I don't feel quite right, which isn't exactly a profound medical diagnosis, but it meant I wasn't able to articulate what I was going through. I didn't know why it was coming up. I didn't know how to work through it. So it took a long time, as I said, a lot of kind of self-discovery and research and all the rest of it to become aware of what I was going through and have the language around it. And that didn't stop with that, to be honest. Like I've continued to work on myself and my mental health over the last few years. I'm almost 30 now, and I'm still learning about myself and my mental health, and I'm still learning about my triggers and how I react in certain situations and certain emotions I lean towards and lean away from. I think it is a lifelong journey, but it is such an important one. I've become a lot more, by being able to become a lot more aware of my emotions and feelings, and being able to name them and understand when they show up and when they don't show up, and which ones I try and run away from. I've been able to work on certain things in my life, or I think confront certain situations, have certain conversations to ultimately, I think, live a better life and feel more at peace with myself. But it's taken a long time to get to that point. But I think that's really one of the missions we're on, and I think one of the missions I'm on when I write my own content on LinkedIn, for example, is just helping people get more aware of their own emotions and feelings, not to be scared of them or worried about them or think it makes you weak. They're all natural. We're all humans. We all have the same emotions. It's just biology and science. It's nothing else.
What are you exactly doing on LinkedIn? Maybe you can tell a little bit more about what's actually the content you are posting as a LinkedIn top voice.
Yeah, I just try and share a lot of my own experience with my mental health, my well-being, my growth, my development. It's all kind of one conversation. I try and share a lot of my experience with that, and storytelling around that, really just to demystify it, and to show that this is normal stuff. I go through it. We all go through it. I know there are people out there going through the same thing that are maybe scared to talk about it, or they think it makes them weak, or they don't know how to talk about it. So I just want to create a space for people, for them to realize that this stuff is normal and it's okay, and that it's okay if they're going through that as well. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. I don't have qualifications in mental health. I've got lived experience, but I don't have qualifications. So I'm clear on that. I'm clear that I'm not there to provide. I'm not there to help people work on their own mental health. I'm not qualified to do that. But I've been in the industry a while, and I've got my own experience. So I just try and share my own stories and my own viewpoints in a human way, to hopefully help people confront their own mental health and their own journey.
Yeah, that's I think very like very good that you do it that way, because I feel it's feeling more human, right? It's your personal story and your personal point of view, and probably that's why a lot of people can relate to it, and yeah, feel more safe in that regard. And I think you use this word demystify. I think I really like it, because that's actually a lot of times when people talking about mental health, and I also have like one of my best friends, both parents died in a very short time period, and I could see him struggle, but he was so like he didn't want to reach out for help, like professional help. I told him like many times you should do it, but I think he always related to I'm not sick, right? I'm good. I'm just sad, like, and that I think that's one of the biggest problems I see, that people still think if you're not feeling well, like mentally, that that you need to be sick and maybe you get medication or something like this. And I think we really need to talk about this topic more, that people understand that it's totally normal to have this kind of emotion, and it is a good thing to talk about your emotions and ask for help, right? I think at least for myself, I think there was something that really um, helped me understand what I'm feeling, and also give me the power to look forward and yeah, to build your new
Yeah.
self, right? I think that's something about you said, like find your new strengths and look forward.
Yeah, you know, as you said, like these, like, if I take your friend for example, like what they experienced, you know, it's horrible what they went through, and the emotions that they would have felt after, and the
Yeah,
grief and the anger and the confusion and the sadness. That's all normal. That's all completely normal. But as you say, or you know, some people still feel that they have to be really sick to talk about these things. But these are all, you know, normal emotions that you know, they don't make us weak, they don't make us foolish, they don't make us silly. They're just our body's way of reacting to a certain situation. Sorry, I've really got something in my throat here. That, you
don't
know,
worry.
they're there to act as a sign for us. They're there to just show us something in our lives. They're not there to, yeah, to beat us up, or like I say, make us look weak. They're there just to, you know, in the same way good emotions are. They're just there to show us that something is happening in our lives that's making us feel a certain way, and it's just like a bit of information. It's just a sign to us that there's something we need to pay attention to. How we do that is, you know, different for everyone, but the way that you feel about a certain situation, and if there are difficult emotions coming up, it's not, doesn't mean you need to, like I say, be scared of them, or think that you're weak, but just pay attention to them, get curious about them. They're there for a reason, and they're there to show you that, okay, maybe that situation is something you need to pay attention to, something you need to work on. And I think that's why it's good we talk about these things. Like coming back to the situation you said earlier, where you have these group spaces at work, and by everyone opening up on those things, it showed everyone else that there was, you know, they had similar experiences there, and they could talk about these things. And I think that's the same thing I want to do on LinkedIn, and the same thing I think anyone does when they share their story or their experience. These emotions, these feelings, that, you know, the way that people feel, it's all completely normal. Whatever the emotion is, I think as humans we generally want to experience good emotions, and I say, I do the kind of quote unquote thing there, because there's no such thing as good or bad emotions. I think there are more desirable emotions. Of course, we want to feel happy and joyous all the time and full of energy. We don't want to feel sad and angry and burnt out and grieving maybe. But whatever the emotion is, it's all normal. All of them are normal. They're just the kind of human. It's like a biological thing. So we don't need to beat ourselves up for feeling a certain way. We don't need to. It doesn't make us weak. Doesn't make us silly. Doesn't make us foolish. It's all completely natural, and our way. It's our body's way and our mind's way of presenting us with information and showing us what's going on in our lives and what we need to pay attention to. So if there's a situation that we feel sad about or angry about, that's our body telling us that there is just something in our life we need to pay attention to. I think when you start ignoring that stuff, that's when it can become a problem later down the line. So I think if I take your friend as an example, there may have been emotions there for them, like anger and sadness and grief and frustration and all that kind of stuff. None of that makes them weak. But if they, but it's there because your body's saying there's something you need to pay attention to. Of course, they've just lost both parents. Of course, that's a horrible situation for them. But I think often what we do and what we've been taught to do is ignore this stuff, ignore the difficult emotions, push them to one side, and it'll be fine. If we just ignore them and don't talk about them, they'll go away on their own. But it doesn't work like that. The body stores it, the mind stores it, and this stuff comes out later in life. That's why you have people go to therapy with a trauma that they experienced 30 years before, because it's stayed with them and they never worked on it. So I think the more we get comfortable talking about whatever is going on in our life, it's easy to talk about how happy you are with the fact you just got married or your new house or your new job. That stuff is easy. It's hard to talk about the stuff when you're feeling crap, you're feeling burnt out, you've just been made redundant, someone's just broken up with you, you just lost a parent. It's hard to talk about that stuff, but it's important we talk about all of it. And I think, coming back to what you said earlier, when you had the group spaces at Plio and you heard someone share an experience, then other people can relate to it, and it gives them permission and confidence to realize that they're not alone, and this stuff is important for them too, and they can talk about it. I think that's why it's important we all talk. I do it on LinkedIn. I do it publicly. You don't have to do that. No one has to do that. But even just having a conversation with your friend, even just checking in with them, asking them how they're doing, even just sharing when you're not feeling so great, messaging them and saying, do you know what, I'm not at my best right now. I'd love to have a chat. It gives them the permission to do the same back to you and then with other people. So I think the more we have these conversations, good and bad, the better for everyone, really.
I think there was some really great tips around, because I'm always keen to ask for tips for our audience here, and I think there were already a few really good tips around the topic now. Because first of all, I think also looking to the working place again, I think what's super important also for managers is what you just mentioned. Just ask your team, how are you actually feeling at the moment, and especially when stuff is going on, maybe structural changes or something like this, that it's super important to not only talk about work and hey, everything's going to be fine, but acknowledging their feelings and asking how do they feel. And we are not able to help all the time, but sometimes it's just good to listen and and give people the possibility to talk about what they're actually going through. So that I really liked what you just said.
Yeah.
And on the
Yeah.
other
And also,
side also, yeah.
so, yeah, just on
No, no,
that
go
point,
go
because
for
it is
Yeah,
such a good one. I think people are often scared about having these conversations because they're worried that if they ask someone how they're doing, and that person comes back and they're actually in a very difficult situation, and they're experiencing some really difficult emotions or maybe mental health issues, the person that's asked the question then has to fix it or know exactly what to say. And you don't have to do that. You just, often what people need is just a space to be listened to and a space to be heard and a space to be seen, because that person thinks they're the only one going through what they're going through, and they've been beating themselves up and they probably feel alone and isolated. And actually someone just asking them how they're doing and listening and showing they care is often what that person needs in that situation. But yes, they might need more professional support or help, and it's
yeah,
important they get that and they're signposted there. But you don't have to be the one doing that when you ask a question. If you ask your mate down the pub or at a restaurant or wherever how they're doing, you don't have to then fix it and solve it. I think just that person knowing you're there for them can well, it can be life changing, really.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the second point I want to mention is also what you said. I think the first time you're actually talking about your feelings, it's really hard. And at least for me, it was really hard, especially if you talk about your feelings in front of people you don't really know, like your colleagues. Like it's not like talking to your friend in the pub, right? But the more often you do it, I think it becomes more easy and more naturally. So I think that's also something you need to train, right? It's not something that comes naturally.
Yeah, it's like a muscle. It's the same way you go down the gym and you work out and you tear the muscle a little bit and then it grows. it's the same with your emotions, really. It's something you have to work on and get used to, and then you kind of grow that muscle. I don't believe you can ever get to the point where it is just the easiest thing in the world. It's just as easy as just, waking up in the morning. I still find it difficult sometimes when I'm going through a difficult situation. I still find it hard to talk about it. I get a bit nervous and sweaty palms because it is exposing. So I don't think I think what I'm trying to say there is it's okay if it feels that way. It's okay if there's something going on in your life and you feel nervous and embarrassed and scared to talk about it. I think what you start to learn is although that bit might never get easier, like I might forever be nervous about talking about that stuff, you just start to learn that actually it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. Like the first time I went to do it might have been the same for you. I thought like the world was going to end. I thought people were going to think I was weird and crazy and stupid and weak and all the rest of it. You make up these stories in your head. None of that happened. Everyone was just there to support me. So I think I've learned that now. I've learned that while it's might not always be easy opening up, actually you start to learn that, other people are going through these things and other people want to be there to support you and help you.
Yeah. George, we are now talking already 30 minutes. So the last question I have for you is, especially like you shared a lot of information around mental health already, and I think I really liked the session already. But is there any book or something you can recommend for people who are actually having a hard time at the moment that maybe helped you in the past going through this time?
Yeah, probably the main two books that I really read when I was struggling was Self-Help for Your Nerves by Claire Weeks. She was a psychologist. That was really useful specifically for working through anxiety and worry, really. There's some good practical stuff in there. And Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig, he's a pretty famous author now, but he writes a lot on mental health as well. And he writes in a really kind of sort of like positive and hopeful way. So that was a really, really good book for me. And I think if there's anyone sort of interested in maybe learning a bit more about depression, just more generally, or maybe their own, then Lost Connections by Johan Hari is a good book as well.
Have you read the books from John Strzelecki, like the Big Five for Life?
I haven't, no. Might have to add that to my list now.
Yeah, put it on your list. It's like it's a little bit more. I think what I liked about the John Strzelecki books, there's a second one. I think it's called like the coffee on the the edge on the world or something like this. I will put it in the show notes as well, because those two actually really helped me, because it's more he put it in like a nice story, and it's not like just facts. It's more like he put it in a nice story. And was quite interesting, because you read the book and you're like, I can relate, right? That's interesting, and it starts like something is going on in your head and your brain start to think. That was quite interesting when I read it.
Nice, yeah, I've added that to my list. I'm always looking for new book recommendations, so yeah, thanks for that one.
Nice. George, thanks for being my guest today. It was really nice talking to you. And everyone who don't follow George on LinkedIn so far, please do it. It's really good. And hope to talk to you soon, George.
Cheers, Dom. Appreciate that, and thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. This was another episode of Sales and Pepper Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, I'm really happy if you follow me on Anchor, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And feel free to share the episode with your friends or colleagues. Thank you.